The only constant is change. You can change anything. You can change and everything. You can change your mind. You can change. You can change your heart. You can change your life. Like a butterfly. All right, welcome back to a new episode of Like a Butterfly, a podcast about profound change on a human level. I'm your host, Angelica Ross, and it's been a minute. I had to take a breather again, due to COVID-19 and figuring out what that was going to look like. But we're back. So I'm actually going to be having a one-on-one conversation today with an amazing butterfly who has just gone through some profound changes in her life to go from experiencing homelessness to building a venture capital fund, a multi-million-dollar capital fund from the ground up while she was homeless. She's the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital, and it's a fund that is dedicated to minimizing funding disparities in tech by investing in high potential funders who are people of color, women, and or LGBTQ. Isn't that incredible? So I can't wait for you to get into this conversation. But first, I want to start off by planting a seed. And as many of you know, I'm a Buddhist. And so I have this book we read out of, Buddhism Day by Day, Wisdom for Modern Life by Daisaku Ikeda. And so I wanted to read the passage for April 30th. Since it's May and we just finished April and we're starting off a new month, I wanted to read the end of April. And it says, Nichiren wrote that wrath can be either good or bad. Self-centered anger generates evil, but wrath at social injustice becomes the driving force for reform. Strong language that censors and combats a great evil often awakens adverse reactions from society, but this must not intimidate those who believe they are right. A lion is a lion because he roars. I wanted to read that because I feel that so strongly in my spirit, because sometimes I feel this wrath because of the political environment and because of things that are going on. We are in the situation we are in right now with COVID-19 because our political system has failed us. Our president was not smart enough to act fast enough. Like there's so many things to sort of debate if y'all want to debate about the different things about the situation. But literally, there's a lot we, the people, have a right to be angry about. And I think that needs to be the driving force for us to reform things. Let's not go back to normal. Let's not go back to the way things were. And so sometimes we have to use a strong language. Now, I'm working on myself. So I'm working on using language that is not profane. I don't necessarily think that profanity is necessary, although it sure feels good sometimes. You know, me and Candy Ferocity can make some profanity slip off the tongue quite nicely, but that's not always necessary, especially when you're looking to reach across boundaries of understanding and identity. So maybe being impeccable with our words, but also being strong with them in order to combat this very great evil that we are experiencing right now in our society. We have to come together and together's roar like with the heart of a lion and say enough is enough. Like a butterfly, like a butterfly, like a butterfly. All right, so now we have our very first guest. Like a Butterfly has just really been just me chatting to the wind, and y'all listening. And thank you for all the listeners out there who are getting into the sort of the spiritual kind of conversation of challenges. So we are having our first guest, and I am so excited to have Arlan Hamilton. Arlan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I pre-ordered your book.
Ooh, thank you.
It's called It's About Damn Time. Is that what it's called?
Yes. And I love you saying it.
It's about damn time.
Yes.
So where did that title come from, first of all?
Well, it originally came from just calling the fund that I've raised. It's About Damn Time Fund, because people were calling it a diversity fund. But I was just saying it's just about damn time fun that we're here, And so now it really means it's about damn time for us as a group, as a society, as a any underestimated group that you identify with, to have your time. And then it also means individually. And that's one I'm really excited about, because it's our time. I think we're walking into our time. So
absolutely. Yeah. So for those that don't know, so I have run across Arlan, like sort of as this, honestly, like a little bit as a fangirl. Like I have seen you at all. We keep running across each other's paths at different conferences, or like I'm on the stage and then you're next, or you're on the stage and I'm next. Like we're just constantly like passing ships. And I just, of course, am in absolute awe of your story and of what you've been able to accomplish. And mostly because I really do relate with a lot of your gumption to sort of like overcome, even though the odds look like what they look like. But also I have a conversation with a lot of the people that I talk with around privilege. And, there's this obvious way of being able to talk to, Silicon Valley and to the corporate America and everything else, because, white privilege is running amok in America. But very seldom, sometimes we have a conversation sort of around our own privileges, even as we are experiencing, challenges. So, as a Black trans woman, I talk about the fact that, yes, a lot of my experience in my life, I've been through things that, because of being a Black woman, because of being a trans woman, have made made life very challenging. However, being someone who, for me particularly, I might have cis-assuming privilege. I also have some academic privilege. I, was raised with two parents in the home. I was raised with faith in the house and things like that. So, there's a lot that I'm so grateful for that is sort of a composite for me of what have been my maybe in the beginning, unrecognized privileges, things that maybe I wasn't initially grateful for. So what are some things that, to skip sort of the conversation for a moment on our marginalization, what are some of the privileges that you have been able to recognize in your own life, and some of the things that you've been grateful for that have kind of been a composite of creating this moment for you?
Yeah, I love that. I think about it all the time, and I try to make sure that when I'm speaking, I let people know that everybody has privilege. Everybody does. We're not villainizing certain people. I definitely, the fact that I can walk around, the fact that I don't have to think about physical disablement, that I have my wits about me, that I grew up with a lot of love, with my mother and my brother. It was all you can do anything. And I know a lot of people didn't grow up like that. And the fact that I think the one that sticks with me right now is that the fact that I can say just about anything I want. And obviously I put myself out there, and I have the trolls and that sort of danger that I put myself in. But when it comes to fear of losing my job or fear of losing the livelihood, and I don't have that today. And that's something as part of my augmented privilege that I call it. I have that voice.
Wait, stop for one moment, because you just introduced a new term, and I felt it in my soul, because I feel like I might have had some augmented privilege. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's something I've been working on for a couple of years. I don't quite have it all defined, but I could write a book about it. Once I get into it, I
Hmm.
just feel like, um, for the first 35 years of my life, I was broke, completely broke, and I mean broke, broke. Where you're looking at the bank account, and if I have one, which
Right,
didn't all,
right.
and it's constantly negative or $12 or this and that, food stamps, homelessness, housing insecurity, all of that. And the last 4.5 years or so, I've just been surrounded by millionaires and billionaires. Not that I'm eating shrimp and going on yachts every day, but I'm in that world where I can pick up the phone and call just about
Right.
whoever I want. And um, it's funny because, I mean, to me, it's like, I'm the same exact person, because 35 years is a long time to be that way. And when I get to walk into these rooms and be part of that group, you've probably been to an event where you like the table cost 100,000 for
Oh,
the food. You
yes.
know what I mean?
Oh,
So to
yes.
me, I've been siphoning privilege. I've been
Hmm.
observing it, siphoning it, and all of that is to sort of turn into this augmented privilege where 5 years ago, the same people who wouldn't give me the time of day call me. I said they
Hmm.
used to call me crazy. Now they just call me.
Right. That's happening to me now too. I mean,
Right.
even in the space, honestly, to have founded Transec in 2014
Mm.
as a Black trans woman who, it was very much like a Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P. Johnson situation. Like, I'm doing all I can do just to, pull the things together, because I'm in reality competing against cis white folks for the same federal funds.
Mm.
And so it was a situation. But so I was working the beating path for a while. And, for a while, people were like maybe giving me awards for some things or what
Mm.
have you. But until I became a celebrity and
Mhm.
famous on TV, all of
Mhm.
a sudden it's like everyone understands now what we do
Oh.
and wants to be. And it's great. I'm glad that we have it now, but it's like I've had to, the growth of what I've seen, especially in what I've been able to do for the community, which I sit with it in different ways. It's just that I've had to myself um, build a certain level of privilege and then extend it to the community.
Yes, yes, and that's part of the augmented part of it, where it's like it is a siphoning and then handing over. It's a little bit of a Robin
Hmm.
Hood theory and an Iron Man theory, where I feel like I'm walking around with the Iron Man suit, and I can do more and go faster and have more impact, but it's all fabricated. It's all around me, and it's
So were you raised with like faith practice, any faith practice?
So I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness,
Hmm.
and I don't agree with or believe in what they practice, and so I
Hmm.
left them and have very strong opinions against them,
Right.
including their very blatant homophobia that still is part
Hmm.
of the DNA today. And today, I don't practice a faith. Um,
But what do
I've
you,
talked to my
so I know you may not, the reason why I'm asking that question is because I'm thinking about those nights that you were sleeping at the
yeah,
airport.
yeah,
And just thinking about, these really hard, challenging moments, like, what got you through?
yeah.
Was it, sometimes it's not necessarily believing in a specific, dogma or what have you, but how did your spirit make it through that?
Yes. So I was actually talking to my wife just this morning going into this conversation,
Hmm.
because I said that to her. I said, I don't know if I have much spirituality to talk about on this. And she said, you have a faith.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
just don't have it in a traditional way. You have a higher calling. And what
Hmm.
she was describing was, she said, "Well, why do you do what you do? You don't do it for money. You don't do it for a job. Why do you do what you do?" And I said, "Well, it's because of the bigger picture of all of the people that I'm representing and all of the people that I'm impacting." And that was the same answer as when I was on the floor of the airport with the jeans curled up
Hmm.
as a pillow and nothing to cover me. It was the reason I was able to keep going was because I knew that these founders existed, that I was going to be investing in one day in this fund that didn't exist. And I knew that they were out there. There were women, there were people of color, they were LGBTQ, all that I identified with. And I knew that they were there. They were already there. It wasn't like I had to go out, get the money, and convince them to become great. They were already in their greatness. I was just trying to put a spotlight on more and more of them. And so then years ago and today is what wakes me up every day. And so it's a belief in us. And I have called it many times a higher calling, and I believe in
Absolutely.
that. And by the way, I do want to mention my wife is queer German girl, and she said that she knows you and loves
Ah,
you and
yes,
featured
really,
you.
yes.
She said she featured you on one
Online.
of her most popular videos, and she was very, very excited that when I told her that I was doing this interview.
Well, that's amazing. And trust me, I'm just, again, I'm so glad that we connected, because I realized that you don't know something until you know something.
Mm,
And so, but even by being left out of the process of educational processes or certain opportunities, there's a lot of things that we don't know. So say, for instance, when it comes to building apps
mhm,
and getting into that world, if you listen to sort of the mainstream conversation around it, it's all about coding.
mhm,
And in reality, there's so many other roles to play in building a company and building a startup and building, um, any of these things. So what would you say to folks who, when someone says, "Oh, I don't think I could probably get into tech," or what would you say to
mhm.
someone who might be unsure, if because they don't have the typical tech
Tech
profile?
background,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say a couple things. One is tech to me is one of the most accessible things because if you don't know the language today, you can learn it, and you
Hmm.
can learn it faster than you would learn a lot of languages. So if
Hmm.
you are interested in that and you're saying I don't know it now, but I want to, yes, there are many ways that you can get into it. It is not too late. Doesn't matter what age you are. Really doesn't matter what age you are, because a lot of it is very kind of user friendly, and you can kind of go onto it. Another thing I'll say, I guess it's three. Another thing I'll say is that there are people like my friend Tara Reid, not the actress, a black
Yeah.
woman who is a gay woman who does this program called Apps Without Code, and she teaches people how to build apps without knowing how to code. She doesn't know how to code,
Wow.
so she teaches
Right.
them from the ground up how to do that. She does these workshops, and it's really cool. And then she has like a paid program. And then the third thing I'll say is something that Naval, the CEO of AngelList, has said on his podcast before. He said that it to kind of, and he's a multimillionaire and he's had multiple successes. And he said the two things that will give you wealth. One is being able to build, and one is being able to sell.
Mhm.
If you can do both, you're unstoppable. I think of myself as both, and you
Mhm.
probably did too.
Yes,
But
I
if you
sure
think
do.
about
Yeah.
that, there are a lot of builders who kind of don't have as much finesse, or they don't know how to articulate things as well because they're
Absolutely.
used to building. If you are someone who can sell and
Mhm.
genuinely do so, you
Mhm.
may be able to find your match, the yin to your yang, find that match and help them sell the thing that they're, and that doesn't mean literally always just, okay, I'm going to sell. It could also mean you're a co-founder of a company, and your job is, as CEO, is to kind of lead and make people really believe in what you're doing and what has been built. And that's a really interesting way of doing it. You can also be someone who sells by being an employee. What's really
Absolutely.
interesting is people don't talk about employee number 10. Employee number 10 at 100-person company who came in, that first 6 months, that first year, they're going to have a great deal of equity stored up over time. And even if the company never exits or has some sort of event that gives them money, they're going to have, that's just a fun job if you like with the product. And it's also experience that's invaluable for the next
Mhm.
thing. So if you think about all these prototypes that we know about, all these CEO white men that we know about, that you only hear about their current success or their recent success. You don't hear about the different things they have done. A lot of it was built on privilege, and I
Well, yeah,
I spend
do you think about because when you think about failure and you think
yeah,
about the fact that it's necessary in the
yes,
process of success, but then when you talk about marginalized communities, the risk of failure means sometimes life and death. It means, a complete wipeout, at least in the
hmm
ways that people have traditionally seen that. There's a
hmm
fear of taking that risk. And I try to speak to that fear Because again, when we talk about privilege and all these things, I've read the book 10,000 Hours, Malcolm Gladwell.
Outliers.
Outliers, yes, Outliers. And what I love about that is I realized, number one, that I'm a genius.
Yeah.
Discovered those terminologies, that I'm a genius. But like for putting in those 10,000 hours into the things that I do, and I really did. The reason why when people ask me, God, Angelica, you speak this way, you do this, or with the technology, and it's just because I've been tinkering around with these things for well over 10 years
Mm-hmm.
to fine tune what I'm doing. However, to be real about the situation, back in the day, when I was a young baby trans, and transitioning, I was coming out of sex work as my only viable option. And there became this moment where, I ended up getting in this relationship with this guy that wasn't sexual. We were in love and we eventually got engaged. But over the course of the 8 years that we were together in that relationship, because he sort of took care of the bills and he took care of certain things, like yes, I went to college, but I used that time, that little whatever space of privilege that I had, to use every waking hour. I was playing the piano, I was guitar, messing around with Logic, doing photography and photo retouching, and just learning my computer and doing all these things. But I had this cocoon of a space
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to create in order to do that. What do you say? Because I've tried to have this conversation around investment. Because I believe that number one, I believe that you need to be your number one investor in yourself and your dreams. And sometimes that doesn't mean money. You don't always have money. And it's that your time, and you have to start sort of like reassessing how you're spending your time and investing that, because I'm balancing this narrative where, yes, trans people need to be paid for their contributions, for their work, for their value. And at the same time, as a normal human being, as a part of this working society, we need to build a portfolio to be able to communicate to other people what our value is and what we can contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you say to sort of that gap, or how do you, I don't know if you have any inspiring words to that gap between um, having the space and taking the space,
Mm-hmm.
having the time and taking the time.
I think it's a little akin to when I started public speaking, because I had really bad stage fright for most of my life. And then 2017, I started working on it, and I talk about that a lot in the book. But I think one of the rules I had for myself was that I wouldn't take less than a certain amount, even as I was like really getting out of stage fright.
Even if the money low, you can't pay me.
Right,
Yes.
right. But here's the second part of the rule. It was I wouldn't take less than a certain amount, so that I could afford to do things without that you didn't have to pay me. So
Mm-hmm.
the organizations that were nonprofit, or the ones that were Black women, who I'm not going to sit here and like gut their yearly budget to have them
Right.
come and speak for 45 minutes.
Right.
The paid gigs afforded me the ability to do those and kind of have that freedom to choose,
Mm-hmm.
select whatever I wanted. And at the beginning, I talk about this in the chapter. I got turned down for the paid gigs for the first two, like just flat out turned down, like nope. And it
Right.
was like hurt my little heart, but I said that's my rule, so I guess I just won't get paid. I guess I just won't do this. And so the third time is when they came back and said, the third group came back, and I was ready for them to say no. And instead they said, oh, we had a budget twice as much as what you just told us, so we'd like to do
Wow.
that. And so now for the past 3 years, I've been able to take on several paying gigs, and that rate has gone up and up every single year. And then I still do the free things that I want to do. So there's that freedom. So what you could do is think about the source of the client, like who
Mm-hmm.
is the client, and you might use that, or you might use a certain period of time, or however you want to frame it, but it's all about you having the power to do it. I don't think it's wrong for you to charge a big organization or a big group a certain amount, and to have a rate that is much lower for
Absolutely.
another type of group, so that you are internally building your portfolio. Every
Absolutely.
single one can add on to that.
Well, and also I just want to thank you for number one, writing the book, because I will be fully diving into it. I will be fully diving into it. I'm working, I'm not classically or traditionally. I went to college up to my junior year, had to drop out because I couldn't afford to stay in, and
Mhm.
have continued to educate myself as much as I possibly can, along the way while helping other people and doing those things. But having your book, I know, number one, is going to be so helpful. First of all, because thankfully, thank you for doing an audiobook version,
Yes.
because I'm just someone right now that, like, the way my life is, the way my brain is working these days, I need the audio version. And
Mhm.
it's something that sinks in better. I'm able to do dishes and clean the house and also learn at the same time.
Mhm.
But also, this is a book, as well as, like, I'm thinking about Janet Mock's books, Redefining Realness, and all these other books, where it is part of my mission to help with some of the literacy issues within the trans and LGBT community. Technology brings these things forward where, okay, so I couldn't go to, college for certain things, but guess what? I listened to the personal MBA on Audible.
Yep.
I listened
Yep.
to psychology books on Audible, and now I'm going to learn to be a venture capitalist, or at least learn how to raise some money or something. It's about
Yeah.
damn time. I need to raise some money. It's about damn time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about that. I personally, reading has always been something that came easy to me. A lot of other don't get me in a room with science, anything science related, or anything like
I think I did see that about you.
yeah.
Yes.
But at the same time, I couldn't stay engaged when it was me reading it. And
Mm-hmm.
what ended up happening was Audible and these other audio platforms sort of changed my life, because I
Yes.
was like, I
Yes.
can listen to an entire book, and a couple of days or a week or whatever when I get the time to. And it's you do soak it up in a different way, and it's just really interesting. So I like the audio. I'm more excited about the audio, if we're being honest, about the audio
Yes.
version than any other version. And I probably
Wow.
shouldn't say that, for my publisher might not like that, but I am really excited about
No,
the
well, because
audio
it
version.
lives, it lives in a way that just is more accessible. And that's what the
Right.
world we're trying to reach to, is just being more accessible.
Yeah, and my brother Rook, he's a rapper in Dallas, and
Okay,
to me,
Rook.
he's a genius. I mean, he's like a hacker at the very least, and he's the kind of person who can open up a box of something, look at the instructions, look at the picture of the instructions once, and build it. He wouldn't be able to read the instructions, but he can read, but he can't retain it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for him, podcasts and
Mm-hmm.
audiobooks, all that's just opened up a whole new world for him. So I'm excited for him to get it, because he even has to have like people read. Like with my book, I sent him an early copy. He would have to have somebody read it to him for him to take it in. So now you
Right.
got me reading it to you through the audio
Absolutely.
version.
Well, okay, so I think I already know the answer to this question. I'm gonna ask you one more question.
Okay.
What is Arlen's legacy going to be? What do you want your legacy to be all about?
I want to, years from now, while I'm still here, I do want to look back and see so many black and brown and women and LGBTQ, et cetera, people who are millionaires and maybe even billionaires. I'm not a huge fan of
I
individuals
know.
having billions, but I mean, whatever. Millionaires and whatever success is to you, it doesn't even have to be related to money, and they are themselves impacting others, and they tell me it's because you invested in me when I was 27. It was because
Wow.
I picked up your book. I didn't know you, but I picked up your book, and it changed the way I thought about what my future would be, et cetera, et cetera. So that impact being a ripple effect, to me, that would be amazing. And I want to help change the face and the narrative of Silicon Valley and beyond, for sure.
Well, Arlene, you have definitely changed things for myself. Just being on the beaten path and seeing you and learning about you over time. So
Thank you.
there's already a ripple effect happening of me being in that legacy. But we're gonna talk some more on the side,
Yeah, we
so I
have
can
to.
get
We
into
have
your
to.
legacy. Thank you so much, Arlan. I hope that you and your family are doing so well during this time. I know that things are very challenging, but just
Yes.
praying that you stay safe and sane and healthy and happy. Oh, last thing I wanted to say, there was one more question I did have.
Yeah.
You seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness?
Okay, let me be honest with you. I haven't seen it, but I know everything about it.
Right. So yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think we would get like a version of that, of your life, a movie of your life, The Pursuit of Happiness? I mean, how amazing would that be? A black one. I mean, come on, we always centered in this other way, but I
Yeah.
think we need a movie about your life. It's about damn time, don't you think?
Let me tell you. So let me tell you, I have something's in the works that's not necessarily that. But one time I ran into Queen Latifah at the airport.
Yes.
And she saw there's a picture of her holding my Fast Company cover.
Wow.
On the streets of New York.
Oh my God. What an experience. Okay. Yeah.
And so we were talking about it, and I said, people have been telling me that they want you to play me in a made for TV movie or something, like Pursuit of Happiness. And she goes, we were walking, and she just met me, and she goes, you know what? I was thinking the same thing. And I'm like, she's like, wait a second, how old are you? And I told her, she's like, oh, I'm like 10 years older than you are. So I don't think it would work. But I think it would be beautiful for her.
She could pull it back, or she could produce it, or they can do makeup in a certain way, to make it.
I mean, I would just, but the point of it is, I'm not really pursuing like somebody making a movie about me, but I definitely want to impact people in various ways. So you're going to see me behind the scenes.
Well, your story will be told. I'm an executive producer, so
okay.
I'm be involved in some stuff. Your story needs to be told though, and it will get told. And I can't wait for everyone else to see it because you are truly inspiring.
Thank you. And if you go to it'saboutdamntime.com, pick up this book, maybe the book will inspire something.
Absolutely. And where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Arlan Was Here on Twitter and Instagram. ARLAN Was Here on both Twitter and Instagram. And it'saboutdamntime.com is also a hub to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Arlan, for chatting with me. And yes, I'll be looking forward to seeing what's next from you.
Thank you so much.
Like a butterfly, like a butterfly, like a butterfly.